up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at noon, a poll shows 1 in 2 Japanese think Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's statement marking the 70th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II should express remorse for the country's wartime atrocities. Sources in Seoul say the U.S. is mulling over deploying a shorter-range THAAD missile defense system that covers North Korea but doesn't encroach upon China's territory. Plus, Samsung Electronics is sweeping TV market shares in Europe and North America, with customer loyalty in the U.S. ranking first for the 4th consecutive year. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's noon Tuesday, February 24th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. And we start with that recent poll which shows the majority of Japanese think their government should show remorse for Japan's wartime atrocities in a statement this summer, marking the 70th anniversary of the country's surrender in World War II.
A survey conducted by the Sankei Shimbun and Fuji News Network this past weekend showed that more than 51% of the respondents said Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's statement should retain key words of remorse and apology over Japan's wartime role as expressed by past Japanese leaders. Polls recently conducted by other Japanese media outlets have shown similar results. Abe is set to release a statement in August to commemorate the anniversary, in which he said he wants to reflect his government's position on the war. Now, Japan's royal family has turned up pressure on the Shinzo Abe administration to uphold the nation's pacifist constitution, with the Crown Prince releasing a statement on Monday reasserting the family's position. However, as Abe's cabinet is firm on its constitutional revision plan, experts say a conflict is brewing. Connie Kim explains.
Japan's royal family is ramping up pressure on the administration of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to uphold the country's pacifist constitution, as Abe prepares to release a statement in August marking the 70th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. In a press conference this week marking his birthday, Crown Prince Naruhito emphasized the need to look back humbly on the past.
I think that it is important to correctly pass on the tragic experiences and history Japan pursued from the generation which experienced the war to those without direct knowledge.
Prince Naruhito went on to underline the importance of upholding the constitution. His position is in stark contrast to Abe's, who wants to revise a pacifist constitution and give the country the right to exercise its right to collective self-defense, allowing the Japanese military to aid allies under attack.
After going through a disastrous war, Japan is maintaining peace and prosperity under the constitution.
It's not the first time the Japanese royal family has called for preserving the current constitution. Back in December, Japan's emperor said the country should not forget about the precious lives that were sacrificed during wartime.
During World War II, more than 3 million people died. We shall not put their lives to waste.
Analysts say, however, that a conflict is likely, as a right-wing cabinet, which decided last July to change the interpretation of the constitution, is unlikely to budge on the issue. The Japanese government plans to finalize items on the agenda for the constitutional revision no later than this fall. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The United States has yet to give Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe the green light on letting him speak before Congress during his visit to Washington later this year. U.S. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said Monday that although Washington welcomes Abe's visit, Congress and the Obama administration will need to discuss Abe's wish to speak before Congress. Korean organizations in the U.S. have already started protesting Abe's possible speech. They say someone who denies his country's wartime wrongdoings, such as the sexual enslavement of Korean women, should not be given such a grand opportunity. If Abe does get to speak, he would be the first Japanese Prime Minister to speak before Congress in more than 5 decades. Back in the year 2000, a former Japanese Prime Minister tried to do the same, but the Foreign Affairs Committee chairman rejected the plan, citing Japan's wartime atrocities. And staying with Japan, the country says it's considering raising a regional ceremony claiming the Korea-controlled Dokdo Island as Japanese territory to a central government event. Tokyo-based Kyodo News was reporting what Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said Monday when asked about the ruling party's 2012 general election pledge to raise the status of the so-called Takeshima Day event. Takeshima is what the Japanese call the rocky islets off the eastern coast of Korea. Suga added Tokyo cannot accept Seoul's latest protest against the Abe administration, sending a senior government official to the Takeshima Day ceremony, this back on Sunday. Now, in Korea, civic groups continue to hold rallies for a second day on Monday, calling for an end to this annual ceremony and also Tokyo's continual erroneous claims to Dokdo.
Amid controversy surrounding the possible U.S. deployment of a missile defense system with long-range radar capabilities to the Korean Peninsula, there now seem to be new plans for a shorter-range radar system that would target just North Korea. Connie Lee tells us more.
The U.S. is apparently looking into making some changes to its controversial missile shield, which could be placed in Korea. The missile shield, known as THAAD, which is short for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, is an anti-ballistic missile system designed to shoot down missiles in their terminal phase. The U.S. did say it is considering placing the system in Korea, although both Korea and China have expressed reluctance, saying it could threaten regional peace. The THAAD system was said to be equipped with radar with a range of between 1,800 and 2,000 kilometers, making it capable of monitoring and intercepting ballistic missiles from China. However, a Korean government source said Monday that the U.S. is considering a shorter-range option for Korea called Phased Array Radar, which comes with a range of about 600 kilometers. The source adds that the shorter-range radar can only reach North Korea, so it will be harder for China to continue to oppose the installation of the defense system to South Korea. Washington's plans for the THAAD system in South Korea are said to be aimed at countering military advances not only from China, but also from Iran and North Korea. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se says a revised nuclear pact between Seoul and Washington will help the two allies strengthen their ties. Speaking to a delegation from the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations on Monday, Yoon said he hopes talks to revise the cooperative agreement will conclude in the near future. For the past 4 years, the two countries have been discussing a revision that would allow Seoul to reprocess spent nuclear fuel for research and development. The minister added the two countries are also in talks over President Park Geun-hye's planned visit to the United States later this year.
Now, Korea's central bank chief says he stands by the current easing policy to help the economy maintain its growth momentum. He added that the central bank will also seek financial stability. Reporting to Parliament on Monday, Bank of Korea Governor Eoh Jin-joo said while the recovery remains weak, his outlook was rosy on the back of a global economic rebound and low oil prices. Asked whether the BOK will further cut or raise the key interest rate, kept at a record low of 2% since October, He said the decision would depend on the economic situation. The central bank had raised concerns about high levels of household debt and its impact on the economy once the rate is brought back up. And there are considerable fears, and they are growing, that Korea's household debt load could be becoming unsustainable, as latest figures show that it has snowballed to nearly $1 trillion. Low borrowing costs and an easing of lending requirements is only exacerbating the problem. For a closer look at the implications of the debt mountain, Hwang Jie reports.
Korea's household debt shot up by almost $58 billion last year. In a report to the National Assembly on Monday, the Bank of Korea said that household loans by banks rose around $33 billion in 2014, and for non-banking institutions, $24 billion. When adding credit card bills and loans extended by all financial institutions like insurance companies, the total amount of household debt last year was estimated at over $980 billion. That means each Korean is in the red by about $20,000, considering the country's population that stands at around 50 million. Mortgage loans took up 80% of the total household debt, stemming from the central bank's 2 rounds of rate cuts that left the key rate at a record-matching low. The surge in debt was also spurred by the government's attempts to boost home transactions by easing real estate regulations. Experts are concerned that this growing household debt could drag down the domestic economy by denting private spending. They say households tend to refrain from spending even though their income may be rising because they either use the extra money to pay off their debt or to save up. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, life is tough for young Koreans looking to land the job they've always dreamt of. A university degree only is often not enough to get you noticed by the big companies, so many people are looking to add extra academic strings to their bow. However, it's a double-edged sword because if you wait too long, you could be considered too old, even if you have just celebrated your 30th birthday. Kwon Soo-ha reports.
It's graduation season in Korea. As a country where around 2/3 of people have a university degree, it's no wonder that it's tough for these fresh-faced graduates to land their dream job.
It has become more difficult to find a job in your field of interest.
It's hard. I'm interested in opening a startup, but I'm afraid as it isn't easy. But then again, it's also hard to apply for a job.
Despite the rosy outlook on the gradual rise in the number of people in work, it's a different story for young people looking to get their foot in the door at a good company.
Due to a limited number of quality jobs, people work part-time jobs until they find a high-quality workplace, or they just continue to search for jobs.
That's why the age of people who were never in the workforce before keeps rising. 1/3 of applicants at some 380 companies last year were in their 30s. Persistently striving for your goal is not a bad thing, that is, if age wasn't a consideration when it comes to getting hired. A job-searching portal says almost 60% of those responsible for hiring are reluctant to take on new people that they consider old. On average, they thought that out of those who graduated from a 4-year university course, male applicants over the age of 32 and female applicants over the age of 30 were old applicants. More than half of Korean employees at some 460 companies feel uncomfortable working with new people in that age group, and nearly half of them thought the older employees could have unsettling effects on the order of rank. And that's mainly due to Korea's hierarchical office environment, which usually demands junior employees strictly obey their seniors. The joy on graduation day may not last too long, especially as companies say they aren't likely to recruit many new employees this year as they feel the current number is enough. Kwon Soo-ha, Arirang News.
Korean tech giants Samsung and LG are firming their grip in the U.S. and European markets in terms of flat TV sales, with the two companies holding a majority of the shares in these two markets. But when it comes to smartphones, it's quite a different story, as our Song Ji-san tells us.
Korea's high-tech TVs are solidifying their lead in the global flat-screen TV market. In Europe, the combined flat TV market share of Samsung and LG Electronics in 2014 topped 60%, meaning 3 out of 5 European customers bought Korean-made flat-screen TVs last year. While LG was at 3rd place in the U.S. market last year, behind local producer Vizio, the two Korean tech giants' combined market share still amounted to nearly half. The trend is backed by the strong preferences of U.S. customers. This year's Consumer Loyalty Engagement Index compiled by the US-based Brand Keys shows Samsung is the top TV producer with the highest brand loyalty for the fourth consecutive year. The firm surveyed over 36,000 American consumers on how willing they are to purchase products from the same brand. The Korean tech giants may be doing well in the flat TV market, but they're struggling to regain their grip on the smartphone segment. In the same poll, Apple kept its lead in the smartphone and laptop categories for the second year in a row, a title once claimed by Samsung back in 2013. Strategy analysts' fourth quarter figures show that Apple accounted for some 49% of global smartphone sales, with its large-screen iPhone 6 models dominating the premium smartphone sector, while Samsung slumped to just 17%. 송지선, Arirang News.
And Apple stock has set yet another closing record at $133 a share, giving the iPhone maker the largest ever market capitalization seen in the global stock market. Apple's stock price surged 2.7% on Monday as investors continue to display their seemingly insatiable appetite to snap up the company's shares. Apple's market cap now stands at almost $775 billion, which is more than 4 times larger than Samsung Electronics. Samsung has been having a tough time competing with Apple at the top end of the smartphone market, while it has Chinese manufacturers snapping at its ankles at the lower end.
Now, more and more global companies are packing up and pulling their factories out of China, raising concerns the country's manufacturing industry could be spiraling down rather a dangerous path as labor costs rise and economic growth contracts. China has lost its position as the go-to place to invest. Kim Min-ji reports.
Japanese watchmaker Citizen recently shut down its factory in Guangzhou. More than 1,000 employees are up in arms after the sudden layoff, but the company says it's part of its restructuring plans. Citizen isn't the only one. U.S. software giant Microsoft has also shut down its Nokia factory in Guangzhou and plans to open a new factory in Vietnam. And with the Beijing factory also expected to close, some 9,000 employees are expected to lose their jobs. Industry watchers estimate more than 100 large factories, including ones run by Sharp and Panasonic, were shut down before the Chinese New Year in the city of Dongguan, one of the country's main manufacturing hubs. But what has triggered the mass exodus? Experts say rising labor and land costs. Such factors no longer make China a profitable investment. What's more is that the world's second largest economy is not expanding as fast as it used to. Another factor is that countries in Southeast Asia, such as India and Vietnam, are stepping up efforts to lure foreign companies. The US, Japan, and Europe are also offering incentives such as tax cuts and investment support to encourage homegrown companies to come back. The trend has raised concerns that China's manufacturing industry, once driven by cheap labor, is heading for a crisis. The official Purchasing Managers Index stood at 49.8 in January, falling below 50 for the first time in more than 2 years, signaling a contraction. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, Korean households are using much less electricity than their counterparts in the OECD. Data from the Korea Energy Economics Institute on this Tuesday shows that Korea was ranked 26 among 34 nations for electricity consumption by individual households, with Norway, Canada and the US topping the list. In terms of power consumption per capita, Korea was 8th on the list, driven by energy-guzzling industries like steel, petrochemicals and semiconductors. The low power consumption by individual households is largely due to a system that sets and raises the unit price based on energy usage. The system was first implemented back in the 1970s to encourage energy conservation amid high oil prices. Now, lots of people complain that their smartphone battery drains far too quickly. Unless you use the device very lightly indeed, you'll be lucky to have much juice in it at the end of the work day. But there are some quick and easy tips to help you prolong your battery life by using your smart device in a smarter way. Shin Se-min reports.
We make calls, text, take photos, watch videos, play games. The list goes on. Smartphones have permeated every part of our daily routine. But for some reason, they can't seem to get through the day on a single charge.
3번이요.
저는 2번 하루에 배터리를 스페어 하나 사서 3개 쓰고 있습니다.
한 2-3번 정도 충전하고 있어요.
하루에 3-4번 이상 충전기에 꽂고 충전하는 편이에요.
Korea's Electrotechnology Research Institute recently released a guidebook pinpointing some of the ways you can prolong your phone's battery life.
One thing you can do is to keep your phone at room temperature. Your lithium-ion-based batteries rely on electrically charged atoms, and they work the best at warm temperatures. So if you're out as the temperature drops, it is likely that your smartphone battery will drain more quickly. But if you must stay out and still want to keep that last inch of your battery life, just cover it up with the smartphone case or simply put it in a pocket.
Another tip, never let it drop to zero. Unlike the nickel-based batteries in older phones, the batteries in smartphones are designed to be charged frequently. So don't wait until your battery dies. Even if it's fully charged, it's better to keep the phone plugged in for another 2 hours so the energy is distributed to every part of the battery. Also, switch off the vibrate function and don't turn your phone on and off. Dim the screen and disable the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functions whenever possible. Kill applications if you're not using them and cut back on unnecessary push notifications. Another Facebook update can wait. And you can always track your battery use through apps that'll help show you how to save energy and stay charged. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And time now for a look through the global headlines for following this Tuesday lunchtime from Seoul. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim at the News Center.
Eunice, 1 month after January's terror attacks, the French government has confiscated the passports of 6 French nationals who it believes were on the way to join radical Islamist groups in Syria.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. Intelligence officials believe these 6 were looking to join the Islamic State group. That's according to the French Interior Minister, who said they were stopped when it was determined that the trip was imminent. Now, he also said the government was processing 40 more travel bans, which would be good for 6 months with a possibility for renewal and which can be appealed against in court. The seizure is the first adoption of an anti-terrorism measure passed in November by the French parliament targeting suspected jihadists. Similar measures are in place in the UK and Germany as well. Australia's Prime Minister Tony Abbott on Monday announced tough new anti-terror measures for his own country that would allow for revoking citizenship for dual nationals found to be involved in terrorist acts. And Greece will submit its list of proposed reforms to its EU partners on this Tuesday, missing a Monday deadline by a few hours to secure a 4-month bailout extension. After a lengthy back and forth, Athens had agreed to the extension with lenders late Friday, contingent on reforms that it says will focus on curbing tax evasion, tackling corruption, and extending help to Greeks stuck in a humanitarian crisis deepened by years of austerity. While keeping the Greek economy from the risk of default, the move is also being seen as a U-turn of sorts from Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras's election pledge to leave the EU debt program. And finally, U.S. President Barack Obama is warning of a looming shutdown of his country's Department of Homeland Security, which is set to run out of funds this Friday. Speaking before a meeting of state governors at the White House, the U.S. leader said the partial shutdown would have a direct impact on America's national security and economy, as it would leave more than 100,000 airport security, border patrol, and port inspection personnel without a paycheck. A Homeland Security Appropriations bill has been stuck in the Senate after House Republicans attached amendments that would strip funding from Obama's executive orders on illegal immigration.
Yellow dust levels have finally returned to normal, but the amount of fine dust remains still very high across much of the country, though it's gradually going back to the normal range as the day progresses. But big temperature gaps are in store today from morning to night. The sub-zero morning lows from this morning will hike up to 7 later on here in Seoul, and other parts of the country, including Busan, will also have a big temperature difference. And as for the temperature in other regions, the daytime high in Daegu and Gwangju will rise to 11 and 10 later on. And as for the other areas, Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 10 and 9 respectively. Now tomorrow should be the mildest day of the week, and then we'll have sporadic rain tomorrow night that will bring temperatures down to the chilly side, so dress accordingly throughout the week. But that's all for me today. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Well, thank you very much, Jion, for the weather, and those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Mark and I'll be back at the same time on Wednesday. Thank you for watching.